can you move from a silo mentality and become one Microsoft? Did you ever have to write a memo called one Pepsi or one Apple?
Absolutely, and it's really challenging.
It's a 24-hour job.
And it's a cultural change as much as an organization change. As you know, Microsoft went through a major organization change last week. Their stock is actually up $55 billion this year, so it's not like the company isn't, still going to be sustainable going forward. But they had a big miss on the Surface RT. The Surface Pro looks like a much better product.
Is it Elisa?
The Surface RT, is a questionable product, how it fits in.
You didn't answer my question. Is it Elisa?
I don't know. I don't know. For those who don't remember Lisa, that was 30 years ago. It was the first graphics-based computer Apple did before Macintosh. It did not succeed.
Yeah.
But the Surface Pro may actually be a pretty good product, and that's coming out reportedly in Q4 of this year. That is mobile as well as able to do a lot of things that PCs have done. So we'll just have to see.
Scarlet, do we see anything when it comes to software margins? Well, that's the thing. Software margins, at least, which was Microsoft's bread and butter, are so much higher than what Microsoft and Steve Ballmer want to focus on now, which is hardware and services. So that's going to be another rethink, a repositioning for the company and for investors, too. John Sculley, when you look at how Microsoft has to make this painful transition, does that mean that the investor base has to shift as well from growth investors to really value investors?
Well, I think the investor base has already shifted on Microsoft to value investors. It hasn't been a growth story for quite some time. But what Microsoft is trying to do is to go to what they call a device and services business model. And their Assure on-premise server business is actually very strong. They're throwing off about $30 billion of cash every year they can put into their big data centers to compete with Amazon. So I wouldn't count them out yet.
I could ask like 45 more questions.
But that cash is what a lot of people are counting on. What is Microsoft going to do with that? The cash they can use that's not held overseas.
Well, Rick Sherlin said on this desk with Nomura, the famed analyst, they ought to buy back 20% of the stock as a starting point.
That's been a big push.
And I think they'll spend a lot of that cash on big data centers because Amazon is a very big, looming competitor to them going forward. Amazon's doing really well. It's got a very high multiple, has almost no profit because people have a lot of confidence in Jeff Bezos as a game changer. And so I think they'll spend some of that $30 billion of free cash flow building out data centers.